Steve Hamer right now, former Vol. Look at him, man. He's a sharp dresser. That sweater just makes me want to hug you.
Hey, I appreciate you guys saying that. It's always good when your wife dresses you, man. That's all I can say. You just get up and you wear what's acceptable in her sight, and you just kind of go on from there.
Yep, absolutely. That looks like a very fluffy, fun to hug sweater. Okay, so here we go. Let's get rolling because I got a couple of topics I want to get to. We're going to talk about the Lady Vols, but first, Steve, let me just get your thoughts on Tennessee's win against Alabama. If there's been a game there was more hype leading up to that paid off any better, I can't remember it in Thompson Bowling Arena.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder why College Game Day wasn't here on Rocky Top.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. They wanted to go elsewhere, but you have 5 versus 6, a very pivotal matchup in terms of not only SEC seeding, but national implications as well. When you think about the possibility of having a number 1 seed, right? In all aspects, I think they were playing for a number 1 seed. And if you look at the great prognosticator Joe Lunardi, he's the gospel when it comes to seeding. He's got Tennessee now as having ascended to the number 1 seed line level. But you talk about a game that lived up to the hype. Just punch, counter punch. Man, guys getting after it. The only part that I wished would have been a little bit different was the officiating on both ends of the floor. I turned to someone. I watched the first half on floor level, and I turned to someone next to me and I said, "Man, there is no flow to this game because every other second there's a whistle. In good, bad, or indifferent, both sides were affected, and you just can't have 20 fouls called in the first 10 minutes of a game. It can't happen, right? When you juxtapose that with the way that other games have been officiated, where they're letting you bump, letting you push a little bit, letting you hand check a little bit, man, it's hard on players, it's hard on fans, and I just wish that the game would have had a different flow to it. But other than that, man, it was just a fantastic game for Tennessee to be down by 4 points with 30 seconds left and somehow scratch, claw, do all of the things necessary to give them a chance to win it in the end. Man, we may talk about this, but man, was there a bigger player than Jami Meshack in that entire basketball game? Yep. And I know Chaz had points. Jordan Gainey, perhaps his best game of the year, saved the Illinois game. But look at the sequence, the last few sequences of what Jami Meshack did, whether it's on the free throw line, boxing out, drawing a foul, whether it was being the catalyst for that 5-second call, and then making the game-winning shot. I mean, it just lived up to the hype, man. Just a tremendous basketball game by both teams.
Yeah, Steve. I'll be the negative Nancy on this in a second, but I'll be positive first.
That's a stunner. It's a stunner.
I was going to actually ask you about Jami Meshack in that last 30 seconds. I mean, it's crazy. Is that the most impressive last 30 seconds of a sequence you've ever seen in a college basketball game? Because it is for me, honestly.
Well, I will say that is second. Now hear me out. I remember circa 1993, Rick Pitino's on the sideline with the Kentucky Wildcats here at Thompson Bowling Arena. Allen Houston has to make the first, miss the second on purpose. Corey Allen gets the rebound. Corey Allen falls away, gets fouled, makes the shot, goes to the free throw line, makes the free throw, and we win over who was going to ascend to the #1 team in the country, Kentucky Wildcats. That's one of the best atmospheres I've ever been in. Probably one of the only times that I've been a part of a positive court swarming or court storming. So, but that what you saw Saturday was just hard to beat, man. The amount of fandom, if you will, after he made that shot, everyone was just in full throat. Caleb, Dave, I literally, and I mean this when I say this, I literally stood up and screamed as loud as I could. And I got such a blood rush to my head, I had to sit down and because I was going to pass out. But it was just the atmosphere, man. It was so exuberant, so exciting. And it was just unlike something that a lot of our fans had ever seen.
How much is Jami Meshack kind of the X factor? I feel like I know what to expect from Igor, Chaz, Dubar, Zakiah. But I feel like that there's a little bit of up and down with Meshack, but when he's up, man, this team's hard to beat.
And I think you probably heard some of the comments from Coach Clark last week regarding people that had some unsavory things to say about Jami Meshack and why he was still in the starting lineups. Jami Meshack is, to me, one of the most valuable players on this basketball team because of not only what he brings on the defensive level every single night, not only because of his toughness and his grit that he displays, not only for all of that, but he's the ultimate teammate, right? He's the ultimate teammate. And you may get 9 points from him, you may get 2 points. You may get 12, you may get 4. As long as he continues to be the constant defender, as long as he remains the consummate chemistry guy, the glue guy, you can't have him out of the starting lineup. You just can't. He means too much to this program. And there may be people out there that will differ, and we can argue that ad nauseum, but he's too much of a glue guy and means too much to this basketball team. Again, we need to look no further than the last minute and a half of the basketball game on Saturday. If he's not in, we don't win. And that's point blank.
Agreed.
Steve, I want to draw a couple of concerns from the game just real quick. So the first is, even though he's Tennessee's primary scorer, there does still seem to be an issue with Chaz Lanier doing certain things right in crunch time. This was the second game of the year with the game on the line. He missed a very key free throw. And I mean, I know a lot of players don't like to talk about this, but we analysts do. So is there a concern that the moment gets too big for him sometimes?
Yeah, I could see that's a valid concern when it comes to free throws late in the game. And I won't say that it's just him, because there was a stretch in the game where a plus 83% free throw shooter in Zakai Ziegler missed 4 in a row.
That's true.
On Saturday. And that was huge, right? You thought, okay, man, we can stem that tide a little bit, knock down some free throws. Zakai can get into a rhythm and we'll be fine. And he misses the first, misses the second. Then, a couple of series down the floor, he misses the third, misses the fourth. And then it's in your mind, right? Then it's all in your mind. So I see the concern, but I'll also say this. If you look at the way Chaz Lanier is starting to play on both ends of the floor in crunch time, particularly on the defensive end of the floor on Saturday, Chaz was all in. I mean, bumping guys, bumping cutters, trailing screens, getting his hands in. He has become a much better defender. Then when you go to the offensive end of the floor, Chaz again is turning the corner. He's fading screens, he's curling screens, and he's knocking down shots. So I'm not necessarily worried about that from the offensive end as much as I am from the free throw line, because, man, we all know this. The charity stripe can be a tough place, right? Because you're by yourself. And people out there think, oh, Steve, man, it's a free throw. You should be able to hit a free throw. Well, guess what? The average fan doesn't have 25,000 people watching in the arena, along with another million people watching via television, with all of their hopes and dreams riding on a free throw. That's tough. It's hard. And I will say that that concern is valid, but, man, I would rather have him, Zakai, at the free throw line. I'm on ride or die with those guys, man. I know that he's missed a couple, but I'm on ride or die with those guys.
Yep, I agree with that. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler, looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. Let's be honest. When Jami shot that, what was it, 40-footer? Did you think that was going to even hit the backboard?
From my vantage point, I had moved upstairs and I was watching, and because of the way that where I sit, it's kind of angled, and you couldn't see if the ball was going in. When he released it, Dave, in my mind, I thought immediately it's got a chance because it's online. Now, whether it hits the backboard, whether it hits the rim, whatever, it's online. And, I got to be honest, man, I felt like he's going to make the shot. When it left his fingertips, I thought, man, he may make this shot. And sure enough, it goes in. And again, the place just it goes into pandemonium, but it just looked good initially from the way he shot it.
So, Steve, before we move on, I wanted to ask you one more question. I know a lot of people are high on him as a coach. How baffling was Nate Oats' final 30 seconds of that game coaching on the sideline? That I don't understand how he left 2 timeouts on the floor and then had no defense on that final shot.
Yeah, there is a confluence of errors by Nate Oats in Alabama basketball. One, if you find yourself, everybody knows this, in your mind, if you're taking the ball out of bounds, if I get to 3, it's timeout. I'm going to take it out of the official's hands. Not going to do it. But I think, Caleb, you got to take a step backwards from that, because it doesn't start there. It starts in the last media timeout, where if you're a coach, you tell your guys, we have 2 timeouts left. If you find yourself in trouble, if you find yourself trapped, if you find yourself on the floor and people are diving in, timeout, 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 get it in their minds right away that we have 2 timeouts left. That way, when you fast forward to that 5-second count, that never happens because it's fresh in the guy's mind. Like, oh no, I got two timeouts. But that's where it starts. And then I will say this. That same play that you saw that was drawn up by Coach Barnes, we also used that play in Illinois, and it worked to perfection. You know why it worked to perfection? Because if you have a Zakai Ziegler or a Gainey running at you full speed, your natural inclination as a defender is to backpedal as quickly as you can. You're going to backpedal. So it was well scouted by Nate Oats, because they did not let Gainey get the ball, and they shielded Zakai Ziegler from catching that. So Jami, credit to him, as quickly as he could, drove up the floor, got a screen because a guy's backpedaling, had no idea that the screen was there, and then he makes the shot. So there is a lot of fault that has to fall on the shoulders of Nate Oats, right? Ton of fault. You got to call timeout. You got to do whatever it takes to let the guys know that you do have timeouts. And you got to tell those guys, again, Caleb, why didn't you call a timeout when you saw that Tennessee was setting up the play?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I agree.
Point.
Baffling.
I mean, if you didn't call the timeout on the 5 seconds, then as soon as you saw the Tennessee was lining up to run that play, hey, timeout. Nope. Now I've seen what you got. I'm going to make you change it. And I may come at you with a 3/4 court press. Maybe slow you down just a little bit. I'm going to try something different. But that's the most mind-boggling thing to me. Why didn't you call the timeout when you saw what Tennessee's trying to do?